Part 1, the prologue, the underestimated first bite. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Today, we're diving into a topic that might sound like old news, sugar and the modern diet. But, I promise you, by the end of this show, the way you look at that full sugar milk tea or that exquisite piece of chocolate cake will change forever. Our discussion today is centered on a groundbreaking study from Professor Hargrave's team at Purdue University, published in Brain and Behavior. The study is titled Brain and Behavioral Perturbations in Rats Following Western Diet Excess. I want you to start by imagining a very common scenario. It is 3 点 or 4 p.m. You've just finished an exhausting, brain-draining meeting. You feel empty, like your energy has been completely siphoned off. 2. Reward yourself, or simply because you feel you need a boost. You grab a slice of cream cake or order milk tea with all the toppings. As the sweetness dissolves on your tongue and your blood sugar spikes, you feel a brief moment of intense satisfaction as if your soul is being healed. But have you ever wondered, at the exact moment you swallow that last bite, how quickly does your body begin to undergo a substantial internal transformation? Most people, myself included, used to think, oh, an occasional indulgence is harmless. Diseases like diabetes, obesity, and cognitive decline are built up over decades of bad habits. Right, wrong, dead wrong. This Purdue University study shatters that comforting illusion. It tells us that the collapse of the body doesn't happen over years or even months, it happens in days. Today, we will trace the timeline revealed by this authoritative paper on a secret mission inside the body. We're going to pinpoint exactly how excess sugar, in an incredibly short window, quietly sabotages your productivity, your decision-making, and even the physical structure of your brain. Part 2, Day 1, Initial Failure of the Braking System. Let's take the first day of consuming a typical Western diet, high in sugar and fat as our starting point. You might think that on day 1, at most, you've just overshot your calorie count. You feel a little guilty and tell yourself you'll run an extra mile tomorrow. But the experimental data shows that on day 1 alone, your biological mechanisms have already switched into self-destruct mode. Researchers found a significant phenomenon occurring on the very first day, hyperphagia overeating. You might say, what kind of discovery is that? Sweet things taste good. Sure, of course I want to eat more. No, the biological significance behind this is staggering. It's not just that your taste buds are being stimulated. It's that your hippocampus, the core brain region responsible for memory and spatial navigation, has already begun to lose its inhibitory control over eating behavior. Simply put, the hippocampus is your brain's braking system. When you've consumed enough energy, a healthy brain mechanism tells you, that's enough. Stop, but a high-sugar diet infiltrates your brain's command center on the very first day and quietly loosens the screws on those brakes. So, from day 1, when you decide to take just one more bite, it's no longer your rational self in control. It is your disrupted neural mechanism taking over your hands and mouth. Your eating behavior regresses from a deliberate cognitive act into an unconscious instinctive impulse. The first domino is pushed the moment you take that first bite. Part 3, Day 10, the brain's energy blackout. What happens if this diet continues for 10 days? This is the part of the study that sends shivers down my spine. Just 10 days, in less than 2 weeks, the physical structure of your brain undergoes substantial changes. During these 10 days, the changes occur within the hippocampus. Researchers observed a significant decrease in the gene expression of 2 critical transport proteins. GLUT1, responsible for crossing the blood-brain barrier to transport glucose from the blood into the brain. MCT1, responsible for transporting monocarboxylates, such as lactate and ketones. This creates an incredibly ironic physiological paradox. Logically, if you are gorging on high-sugar food, your blood should be teeming with glucose. Energy is so abundant it's practically overflowing. So why would the brain shut down GLUT1, its primary supply line? Shouldn't it be frantically absorbing that energy? The answer is brutal. It is a pathological defense. Because the blood sugar concentration is too high and the fluctuations are too violent. This extreme environment threatens the integrity of the blood-brain barrier. To protect itself to prevent these violent fluctuations from crashing into fragile neurons, the brain chooses to weld the gate shut. This leads to a tragedy. Your body is literally soaking in sugar water. But because the gates are locked, your brain neurons are actually plunging into a severe energy famine. It's like a city in the midst of a famine, where mountains of grain sit just outside the city walls, but the gates are bolted shut. Your brain is screaming. It is starving. Yet you are on the outside desperately stuffing more sugar into your mouth, trying to alleviate that mysterious sense of weakness. On day 10, this brain famine reflects directly in behavior. The study mentions two critical professional terms. The second impaired behavior, vicarious trial and error VTE. This is the core of high-level cognitive function. You can think of it as mental time travel. When you reach a fork in the road of life, you pause and look around. At that moment, your brain is actually calling upon past memories to simulate the future. What happens if I go left? What happens if I go right? You simulate the outcomes before making a decision. But on day 10, due to the energy crisis in the hippocampus, VTE behavior is drastically reduced. What does this mean? It means you have lost your capacity for proactive thinking. If you find yourself becoming disorganized at work, unable to weigh pros and cons when facing complex tasks, and unable to react like a firefighter to immediate, urgent stimuli, don't simply chalk it up to being tired. It is highly likely that your brain, locked up by sugar, has lost its physiological ability to foresee the future. Part 4, Day 90, Systemic Metabolic Collapse. If we extend the timeline to 3 months, day 90, by this point, the localized brain crisis has spread into a systemic metabolic failure. First, your blood will show persistently high levels of insulin. This is what we call hyperinsulinemia, the core precursor to type 2 diabetes. Insulin is an anabolic hormone. Its job is to force the body to store fat. So at this stage, even if you feel you aren't eating more than before, your body acts like an out-of-control storage machine, frantically turning every calorie into flesh. But even scarier mutations are happening where you can't see them. Blood-brain barrier breach, due to chronic blood sugar shocks. The once tight barrier develops gaps. Harmful substances from the gut, such as lipopolysaccharides LPS, begin to leak into the brain. Neuroinflammation, toxins in the brain trigger a continuous inflammatory response. BDNF decline. BDNF is known as brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for your brain neurons. The result, inflammation is spreading, while the fertilizer is drying up. In daily life, this manifests as a persistent brain fog. You suddenly forget your words in a meeting. You can't remember a new colleague's name. And your efficiency in learning new skills drops off a cliff. Even worse, the braking system we mentioned at the start is now completely broken. By day 90, this loss of control becomes a vicious cycle. You look at the red warnings on your medical report and feel anxious. But your brain, driven by extreme hunger and inflammation, drives you even harder to find sugar. This is no longer a matter of willpower. It is a physiological downward spiral. At the same time, this physical neuroinflammation directly distorts your psychological state. Emotion-driven impulsivity, you become extremely irritable. The smallest annoyance can make you explode. Cognitive rigidity, you become incredibly stubborn, unable to take advice, and your life becomes entirely driven by the instinct to acquire sugar. This isn't just getting fat or getting slower. This is your personality being quietly reshaped by your diet. Part V, Epilogue, Reflection, and Turning Point. Hearing this timeline from day 1 to day 90 might make you feel desperate. However, this study actually offers us a very important revelation. It included a contrast group, the ketogenic diet. The research found that when the brain is unable to uptake glucose due to damaged GLUT1, providing an alternative energy source, ketones, specifically BHB, and restoring the expression of the MCT1 transporter, can reopen the city gates. This alternative fuel can then enter to rescue the starving neurons. This means that brain damage in its early stages has the opportunity to be repaired or compensated for. The key lies in whether you are willing to stop poisoning your body and give it real nourishment. Before we end today's episode, I want you to reflect on one question. We often attribute our failures in life to character flaws like, I'm just an impulsive person, I'm naturally disorganized, Well, I just can't focus. But through this Purdue University study, let's look at it through a different lens. How many of these so-called personality problems are actually just the result of the modern diet we consume every day, which on a physical level is stripping us of the physiological foundation required to be a rational adult? You might be much smarter and more rational than you think. You're just trapped in low-efficiency mode by that piece of cake or that cup of milk tea. Every time you refuse excessive sugar, you aren't just dieting, you are launching a brain defense operation. You are protecting your ability to foresee the future, your right to emotional stability, and your freedom as an independent individual. So, what's your next move? How will you adjust your lunch plans for tomorrow? This program is produced by VitaChoice. Thanks for listening.